Star Wars, Book of Sith. Read by Hugh. The New Truths. Every holocron I've studied, and every new Darkside cult simply restates the teachings of the Sith encapsulates in this text. But Suzar, Sin, Darth Malgus, Darth Bane, Mother Talzin, and Darth Plagueis believe too rigidly in their own dogmas. If any of them could have met and shared their beliefs, they would have found little common ground. I have found the book recovered pages from the works of these great Sith Lords in one volume. These relics are unique and irreplaceable. They are the Book of Sith. Sorensen Sin's Chronicle of the Rise of the Sith Empire is the oldest text by many thousands of years. She was a dark Jedi, banished into the exile, following their failed war against the Jedi. Sin was exceptionally adept at twisting life through the Sith alchemy. The Jedi kept these pages locked in their archives, but I reclaimed them after cleansing of their temple. Regrettably, I could not remove the scrawls left out in the margins by Jedi Masters Yoda and Mace Windu while the text was in their possession. The excerpts from the journal Darth Malgus, kept during the Galactic War, some 36 centuries, are a prime example of how a wounded warrior can be sustained by rage. The war was an unbounded success for the era Sith Emperor, and Malgus was one of our best soldiers. I obtained this text many decades ago from a dealer in antiquities, and have recently passed it to Darth Vader so he might gain inspiration. Darth Bane's rule of two was a keystone of the Sith Order for centuries. The Battle of Rusun, nearly a millennium ago, would have ended the Sith Order had Darth Bane not reconstituted it into a diarchy operating from the shadows. His writings became part of the Sith archives passed down from master to apprentice for generations. During the Clone Wars, my servant Count Dooku shared the book with Jedi agent Quinlan Voss in an ill-conceived effort to lure and corrupt him. Count Dooku's failure is no longer important, for my clone troopers rectified that breach and eliminated Voss while carrying out Order 66. Most texts I recovered were penned by Sith, but Wild Power, by Mother Talzin, relates to another Darkside group, the Nightsisters. Although Talzin's text expounds on her misguided reverence for nature spirits, it does possess a shrewd of pragmatism I admire. The members of her Nightsister clan became merchants for the galaxy's finest Darkside mercenaries during the Clone Wars. Asajj Ventress, a Nightsister by birth, who served Count Dooku until I ordered otherwise, appears to have added her commentary after she slinked away to Dathomir to become a member of the tribe once more. One of my inquisitors recovered this book while raiding the planet to capture Force-sensitive slaves. My master, Darth Plagueis, recorded his own musings on what he believed to be the true nature of the dark side. Although he had a fatal blind spot, he revolutionized Sith understanding of the relationship between biology and the Force. The pages of this text still bear the comments I made after taking Darth Plagueis' place as master and making his possessions my own. The stories of the previous authors ended, but my reign is just beginning. By melding the core truths of the dark side found in these texts, I have set forth the book of anger, the weakness of inferiors, and the manipulation of life. These establish the true knowledge of the dark side and make plain the tasks required to implement the Sith Order. The First Great Schism. We rule the Sith. Here we will build a sovereignty of the dark side to overcome millennia of injustice. But I am the rightful ruler, for I alone possess the curiosity to translate their secrets and apply them to the larger patterns of conquest. I foresee what will become a magnificent Sith Empire. While Korbos was the last battle of the 100-Year Darkness, The conflict began with the most recent Great Schism. Historians squabble over how much splits have occurred within the Jedi ranks. I care not for the exact number, but with each one the Jedi Council's stranglehold on the ways of the Force weakened. The 100-Year Darkness was a spectacular yet predictable revolt against Jedi complacency. The Jedi Order has not evolved in nearly 20 millennia. Even after the Order's founding on Tython, its most curious members realized the failings of their teachers, and so began the First Great Schism. In those days, a Kashmir outsider named Zendor inspired several Jedi to question the light side, or Ashla. They discovered the use of the dark side, or Bogan, unlocked the shackles of their Jedi masters had placed on the Force. Zendor's followers, those who believed as he did but lacked his ability, became his acolytes, or the legions of Leto. Of course, the Jedi fought. They fought with desperation against a future in which they had no followers. History says that Zendor and his legions perished in the Battle of Clumus. But that was not the tragedy of the First Great Schism. The tragedy was that the Jedi learned nothing. They could have embraced the dark side and become the central power of the empire that the legions of Leto sought to build. Instead, they returned to their most antiquated ways and alienated their most gifted members, while exiles are the heirs of Zendor's bold heresy. The 100-Year Darkness. The war in which we fought, and in which many of our followers died, could have been prevented. It was the Jedi who took up arms to keep us from revealing the truth about the Force. They had been paddling in the shallows for eons. By boldly venturing into the Force's expanse, we gained powers that no Jedi had ever possessed. Life itself was at our command. It was I who grew the Leviathans, who splintered the Jedi barricades at Belmora. I gave them the ability to swallow spirits and to store those life energies in skin blisters. The Leviathans, my exquisite monsters, were the final accumulation of the Shamblers, the Howlers, and the Pit Horrors, and all the other spawn I'd given shape and purpose to, my purpose. The Jedi shun this power, as they have resisted every improvement. They caused the schism in their own ranks. Until we annihilate the old order, the pattern will continue repeating forever. Proud people of the Sith. I guided our creaking galleon through the hyperspace breakwater known as the Stygian Caldera, which could no longer have accomplished without command of the Force. For this reason, navigators have found no true routes into Sith space, only blind jumps. Those who are strong with the dark side like myself can sense the way, as a Devlik can sense magnetic north. We touch down on Korriban, the world that screams the loudest for us, that can hear the dark side's voice. It is on Korriban that the Sith Purebloods began. It is here that they often return to death. We stepped out of the cramped reek of our interstellar prison into the light of unfamiliar sun. Grand tombs carved from the planet's stone surrounded us. The sand was littered with the bones of 1,000 kings. The Sith greeted us. Despite our obvious superior powers, we were not hailed as gods when we arrived. It took weeks for us to understand the power structure of their culture, to undermine it, and to annihilate the current king. Ajuna Pal beheaded their ruler, Hakagam Grash, and claimed the throne as the blood heir to the ancestral King Adis, and we became his shadow hands. From that time on, I made it my goal to understand the Sith, Sith space, and the treasures that might await us in this realm. Drypia's fleet experience at last proved useful, as the two of us mapped the local hyperlanes. With that, he had shown such competence in defending Korbos. Our work identified the looping hyperspace lanes within the Sturgeon caldera that contain the planet of the Sith Empire. The Nashi Belfia route trade links Zeus, Caradeba, Ralk, Kreus, and Korriban, the 5 worlds most sacred to the Sith. Ziost had been the throne world of the Sith Purebloods since prehistory. It is where we erected our own palaces to rule as Sith Lords. The Sith respect power, and they are content to serve us. In fact, the Sith Purebloods are marvels. They are a people driven by hunger, rage, and the dark side. Though they are humanoid in form, their tough hides span hues from crimson to obsidian, and their hands and feet are clawed. 2 thick, fleshy tendrils dangle from their cheeks or jaws, and 2 more tendrils protrude from their temples. After much experimentation, I've concluded that their blood is sufficiently similar to our own to permit alchemical crossbreeding. I know Drapa, for one, has had his eye on a Sith priestess. He will be pleased to learn his bloodline will not only persist, but thrive. The Sith Purebloods are strong in the Force, but they do not outmatch us. They are rooted in primitivism, while we are once the Republic's greatest Jedi. They have discovered many secrets, some unknown to any other beings in the galaxy. But their unshakable caste structure instills obedience and purpose, which serves us well as their overlords. Those of us who came to this world with rank and ambition make up the Zois' new Sith Council. Ajudu Pal is our Dark Lord, or Zenrei. Force willing, his reign will be short. We are served by their priests, the Kasei, who have come to worship us as demigods. They regard Jundupal as the manifestation of Tenfo Gem, the left-handed god, and are thus easily persuaded to do our bidding. Their engineers, the Zarkara, are loyal, but they build far too many burial mounds and few battleships. I must convince Paul of the need to redirect the laborers, or his title must be taken by force. Our greatest asset is their warriors, the Messasai, who are nothing more than brute muscle animated by consciousness. They are expendable, yet we must breed more if we are to strike back against the Republic, which has shunned and humiliated us. The slaves and the rabble of mixed species are collectively scorned with the Aperthing Gritua. After experiencing the artifice of the Republic's savory bands, it's refreshing to see the weakness of the inferiors affirmed and exploited for gain. Sith weapons. They may be primitive, but the Sith Purebloods are worthy of respect, not only for their skill with the dark side, but also for their hunger of war. The Zergiok caste has built siege engines and has even developed technologies that can tear apart a star's heart. However, most warfare within Sith space occurs when the combatants can lock gazes before trading blows. Their death-dealing tools are admirable for their craftsmanship, as for their lethality. Sith Sword. While we exiles wield lightsabers when we fought the 100-Year Darkness, the Sith have developed edged weapons honed and strengthened through the Force. Mirrors of the swords carried by the first Jedi on Tython. These swords are heavy and require 2 hands to wield, except for the most mammoth of the Massassi, who can handle them with 1 hand. The swords can deflect plasma bolts and withstand the energy of a lightsaber. Each acts as a reservoir of darkside power. Sith War Sword. This 2-bladed staff requires great skill to wield, and is seldom issued to crude foot soldiers. Ajina Paul tortured Hakagram Grosh and Grosh's own war sword before executing him. I have kept the weapon and plan to use the dried blood upon the blade in my alchemy. Lanvarok. This is the battle weapon of the Misasi. When swung, these ranged weapons release a spray of whirling razor discs. The armored soldiers of the Devor Krav wear gauntlets on their left arm. Larang. When thrown, these curved blades return to the user's hand unless it's been thrown into the skull of an enemy. It is reminiscent of the weapons carried into Inquility by the Royal Macheto of the Keshimir. I have no doubt we can improve it further. The Shikar. The Shikar is the tool of assassins. It can be as long as a forearm, yet it can easily be concealed beneath robes. A twist of the handle after stabbing a victim will snap the glassy blade off and leave it to fester beneath the skin. Sith Poison. The poisoners of the Maquis would burn with envy at how the Sith have mastered this subtle art. In battle, the Sith coat their blades and darts with this poison. They've also been known to lace the drinking goblets of rivals. The poison can cause pain, paralysis, death, or blood frenzy. But with every generation of Sith, the poison must improve to compensate for the species' improved immunities. Sith Amulets. These melee weapons of the Sith are carried by the brute Misasi, but their amulets require more skill. Many among the Kasei priests wear these baubles around their necks to deepen their links to the dark side of the Force. Minor amulets can create protective shields, knit injured flesh, sharpen battle focus, or energize weakened muscles. However, great amulets are priceless and often unique. Users first must overcome the amulet's seductive song, for if they can't, they will forever be lost to the dark side insanity. I have acquired many of these prizes for myself, but I remain restless knowing that many more lie locked in the tombs of Korriban. Of the amulets I have countered, these are the most powerful. Sith Avatar. Were it not for this relic, I would not have attained such easy mastery of the Sith tongue. The Avatar translates any language spoken or written and attunes it to its wearer to the maddening chatter of ghosts. Yoke of Inseeming. This golden amateur burns the skin, but through illusion it makes the wearer appear as anyone or anything. I had meant to study this treasure before Exxon stubbornly seized it for herself. Heart of Gansley. The dead king Dathomir Ecology replaced his own heart with this fist-sized ruby, which contained the souls of his foes. When paired with the helm of Grash, the wielder can control the forces of nature. Meditation Sphere. This Sith space-going vessel is not an amulet one can grasp or wear. It is an amulet that encompasses its processor. The arcane geometrics of the vessel's cabin can amplify the passenger's spell 1,000-fold in every direction. Mur Talisman. Carnus Mur requested I create this, but it shall be my triumph. My experimentations with the Heart of Grash and my alchemic mastery of raising Sith spawn will culminate in the first great amulet to be worn by one of the Lords of the Sith. Its power will transform the feeble-minded into braying raguls, whose actions are the result of the wearer's desire. It will also preserve the wearer's spirit should it fall in combat. Though Carnus will receive the first, I will complete more than one amulet. The second will go to Jespa, so those two fools can battle each other unceasingly. The third shall be far stronger than the others, and it shall be mine alone. Houses of Power. Sith Purebloods are natural adepts at the dark side. This I must emphasize, for it is this trait that will make us far stronger in exile than we ever were when we held our former ranks. I've always been one to seek out rumors of esoteric worlds and their life bounty, and I do not know of other species like them. The Sith have 1,000 generations to perfect the dark arts. The ziggurats of stacked stone and the mountainsides carved into the stern faces are more than just tombs for vanished kings. When you stand at the intersection of this mystic architecture, you feel a rush of wind and a shiver of electricity. The angles of these mausoleums focus the arcane energies of the Force. On Korriban, which is a planet of nothing but tombs, the very dust appears to generate Force energy. The Valley of Kalg is lined with monuments that stood long before the Jil marched across Coruscant. Shortly after our relocation on Zoist, I returned to Korriban with a small cadre of priests and a vast retinue of slaves to unseal the tombs. I could sense they were ripe for plunder. Upon entering our first target, the cloister of Bilious Torment, I noted that the passages bristled with dart shooters and were lined with columns that toppled at the slightest footstep. I lost 20 slaves, but their corpses were scarcely seemed out of place. Sealed inside the tombs along with the dead lords were the desert mummified corpses of their servants. Once we penetrated the outer passages, the inner sanctum held the esophagus of the great ruler, placed at the center of the power loci. Sith Holocrons. At the end of the 7th day, with slaves running low, we penetrated the sanctum of Sekela Kal. The sacred tomb had apparently lay undisturbed since its sealing more than 10,000 years before. It brimmed with wonders. Here I found scrolls detailing Sith alchemy. I found the preserved body of Terrantactic. I lost 6 more slaves to a rapacious pack of Tudata. And most impressive of all, I found the holocron of King Nakru. Yes, holocrons exist in Sith space. Sith holocron are technologically identical to the Jedi holocrons of the Republic, but they possess darkside refinements that make them ultimately superior. Scholars know that a holocron is a box of crystalline lattices which are capable of housing near infinite amounts of priceless data. These matrices can be aligned only through precise and exhausting application of the Force. A completed holocron can be accessed only by another Force user. To navigate at holocron's secrets, one must speak to its gatekeeper, a holographic echo of the device's builder that retained the measure of the builder's spirit. Constructing a holocron can take months, and a single misstep will collapse the device into dust. All this is known to the Jedi as well. I believe the Sith Purebloods may have built their first holocron after wresting the secret of the ancient alien conquerors, the Rakata. Thus, the Jedi may simply have copied the Rakatans. But Sith holocrons are distinct and devious. They are pyramidal, not cubical, to replicate the angles of power found not only within the Sith tombs, but also within the Sith culture. Their exteriors are carved with hieroglyphics and stylized figures with a sorcerous seal that casts curses on unworthy seekers. The central crystal is the color of smoke and is both a power source and a repository for the gatekeeper's data ghost. This capstone must be etched with the builder's spirit in a Force ritual called the Rite of Commencement. Destruction of a capstone will release its gatekeeper, and one would be wise to flee rather than face down a vengeful specter. Reign of the Axe. Within the Negru holocron, I learned the history of the Sith Purebloods in vivid detail, not found through oral histories or brittle scrolls. I learned these warlike people are living proof that the smug Jedi who banished us are wrong about the dark side. The Sith kill, rage, and hate, yet their society does not fragment. It thrives. More than 3 millennia before the Republic's foundings, a prodigious Sith arose. His name was Addis. He bore a glossy ebon hide and carried a pair of battle axes, one in each hand. Most others required 2 hands to swing just one axe. When Addis roared, other Sith rushed to his side or fled in terror. He enslaved the foolish and executed the idealists. When warriors challenged him, he drank their blood soup to honor their deaths. He took control, uniting the squabbling Sith, and became the ruler, King Addis. The reign of the Axe lasted 3 centuries, while Addis sustained his life energy with the dark side. He was worshipped as a Sith'ari, or God of the Sith. Only when the great Rakuten conquerors arrived did his life end. Yet, even in his death, he had a final victory for the Sith by driving off the Rakuten. The technology the Rakuten brought allowed the Sith to expand their influence and claim the planets that make up the dark fist of Sith space. From that time, Addis's example has been followed. It is a simple principle: a strong ruler gives power to the Emperor. Conquests of the Sith. As revealed by the Holocron, the successors to King Addis used their power to conquer worlds beyond Korriban and Zeist. Sith space is remote, but hardly impenetrable. Yet the Republic knows nothing of this kingdom of dark magic. The Sith have left many scars anyone can read, anyone who does not believe the lie of strength through tolerance. Encounter with the Anzadi and the Rakata during the time of King Addis proved to the Sith that they were not the only ones among the stars the Force had animated. This offended their pride and inflamed their fury. The Massassi were unleashed on neighboring worlds to snuff out all life and to expand the Sith Empire. Did those beings regret their pacifism? Did they rue the democracy and social constructs that offered no protection when invaders burnt their homes? Their dead tongues do not speak. The Sith reached other worlds, including those outside the Stygian caldera. Tun became a prison for heretics. Arura housed monsters that were spawned from Sith sorcery. The worlds of Malachor and Thal were fortified against counterattack from any foe. They will serve as the perfect positions from which to launch our reconquest of the Republic. Since gaining this knowledge, I have sought out those conquered Sith worlds to gather information. Our raids have proved one thing: Republic leaders are willfully blind. My first sight of the shackles of Darathos in the battle pits inspired me to delve deeper into the collection of vermin-chewed star charts. I confirmed the Sith indeed struck the Republic world of Dathos, though the time frame remains murky. They raided Quirma and Felucia, and other worlds such as Grand and Florn, known to scouts and smugglers. The evidence engulfed me. The Ashgrim slaves operating the forge boilers had attracted little notice before, but there it was. A strong-backed harlequin on Zeist, cranking the bellows. A limping Missy on Necroja, burdened with stones nearly unrecognizable under its soot-slicked feathers. A human on Dromod Kaas, so skeletal it could be mistaken for some exotic breed. These were familiar beings I could have encountered in any Coruscant market, and all turned their faces towards me in mutual recognition. The keen on their pleading wails came to an end when I returned to my palace and bolted the door. War Beasts. The Holocron revealed much about the creation of war beasts. From Zeust's breeding pens provided a more immediate education. What a delight to have landed amidst fellow twisters of life. Among the Kasi are the Nufrusak, whose title translates as Knotters of Entrails. Through alchemy and manipulated breeding, they have birthed many hungry creatures to toil and kill for the Sith. The Siluth are mutated from beetles. Long ago, the Sith scattered them across the world of Kalisnor. The click of their mandibles became a dire drumbeat. Their tank-sized scavengers can still be found on the planet, melting its ruined cities with sprays of acid. The Sith keep swarms of them in reserve for another campaign. During the same war that birthed the Siluth, the Sith introduced the warbird and the war behoth. Mainstays among the Massassi infantry even today, the warbirds are used as mounted assault avians that can carry a rider into battle and rip apart enemy soldiers with their beaks. The gargantuan behemoths are used a little differently, as troop carriers or walking weapons platforms. The guardian beasts, called Tugnaka, stand watch over the tombs and protect them from desecration. They have long been the royal companions of the Sith kings. They possess great tactical intelligence and can live for centuries without feeding. I would have died in the tomb of Dengroot had I not fed a slave Sith to the Tekata. The Darkside dragons, known as the Hissis, feed on rage and carry a toxin that can infect a victim with blood frenzy in a single bite. The hatchlings of these beasts are exquisite. They crawl from their shells only after a throng of Darksiders have been murdered in their presence. Among the more recent creations of the Kasi is the Tenitak. What a marvel of raw gluttony! A Tenitak feeds on Force-rich blood and thus hunts Sith Purebloods exclusively. The Sith use them against enemies, yet fear the inevitable retaliation. A curious two-headed reptilian creature was recently birthed from the offal of 10,000 sacrificial birds. It is armed with a poison-tipped tail. I have classified it as a battle hydra, but I have yet to name the creature. My slaves are building an aviary for my 3 specimens. Some beasts are built to tear down enemy fortification, as my Leviathans and the Crystallines are. These Sith beasts are nature's advance to perfection. I do not know which animal produced the first stock, but the Crystallines we have in the Sub-Zero paddocks are nothing but teeth, claws, bulk, and sinew. Also among the Sith stronghold are the war worms. I recognize these creatures of Florn by the shape of their siege weapon. It has been grown to such a size that it could span the highest of Coruscant spires. I'm eager to test one out against the ramparts of the Jedi Temple. Sith alchemy. None of these creatures arises from nature. They are bred for their extreme forms. Breeding has limits, however. It takes generations, whereas alchemy is immediate and forever. Through alchemy, one uses the Force to effect change on the physical. I was the greatest of the master summoners who fought in the 100-Year Darkness. My inspirations came to me in rumors and dreams, and only now do the Mirets of Zeus do I realize it was the call of the Sith all along. Sith alchemists have had ages to perfect their art, and their knowledge is now mine. Sith alchemy is applied to both the living and the non-living. Each is a distinct disciple of this study, but the latter being better suited for new apprentices. Alchemy on the non-living is far simpler because there's no living cells to resist you. This science is used to create amulets and enhance weapons. Any object touched with the alchemist's science will become force-sensitive itself, forever retaining a mirror imprint of its forger. Alchemy on the living is suited only for masters. The subject's own force energy will fight you as you twist and shape the host. By recasting the shape again and again, you will get a Leviathan. Sith Incantations. Alchemy is my science, yet I have found Sith Purebloods possess a new understanding of how to manipulate the dark side. I sought the secrets of spellcasting in my Pelifrid Holocron, but its guardian was jealous. Casting my net wider, I recovered scrolls submerged in the blood slurry of the mongrel altar. They were concealed behind a mural of King Adis at the internal pyre, interred alongside the headless body of Warmuk the Underdying. Reading one of these great scrolls invariably unleashed a curse. I have found that the longer I must fight off horror, blindness, and liquefaction, the more valuable is the information the scroll contains. It is not sufficient to simply use force powers, as the Jedi teach. Ritual gives spellcasting added power. Memorize incantations, speak them with conviction, and weave the invisible lines of power through gesture. Through this, I have changed the world in ways my teachers never imagined. Bolt of Hatred. By focusing your rage on the ones that stand against you, you can conjure a spear of dark energy to pierce their flesh. Darkside Web. With quick and precise finger slashes, you can spin a tracery of force tendrils to block a sword or bind a foe. Suppress Thought. By first adding your victim's brain, then supplementing the quieted thoughts with the sound of your own voice, you can control the will of another. Summon Demon. By concentrating on the air and energy around you, you can call forth a manifestation of the dark side. A dream beast has no true form. Its shape is whatever its victim fears most. A smoke demon can travel as wind-blown mesa or colus into solid form when commanded to attack. It can vaporize the body of a victim by entering its nose or mouth through its vulnerable to force-based attacks. Reanimated Dead. This complex spell animates both the freshly dead and the skeletons of the carrion field, transforming them into an unstoppable legion, impervious to pain and able to transmit necromancy infection by biting. I would have taken pleasure in meeting Dathka Grosh, who died decades before our arrival. Though he is gone, it was he who melded alchemy and spellcasting to perfect necromancy. Words have power. Proof is in the Sith scrolls I acquired. When read, they release malevolence as a safeguard against those who would unlock their secrets. Better leave hundreds blinded with a binding curse than surrender power to a single fool. The abilities described in the ancient Sith language are new and astonishing. It is clear that in all the eons since the Jedi left Tython, they have never divined the value of incantation. When a Sith sorcerer speaks, he gives voice to the 1,000 mages who went before him. If armed with the proper commands and trappings, the dark side can be bound, leashed, and led down any path of your choosing. Sith spells that require vocalization are written in the Sith tongue, and consequently must be pronounced as such. Be aware that it is more than recitation. Your inflection must be both precise and passionate. Speak with hesitation, and the spell may haunt you instead. Most incantations have a specific meter and rhyme, and thus cannot be modified. The most complex incantations unleash spells of volcanic intensity. Spells, however, require time to prepare and to recite. They are challenging to use during combat. Sith kings often remove their best sorcerers from the battlefield scrum, positioning them atop high palpitate, where they can rain curses upon the enemy legion below. The potency of incantation can be enhanced with amulets and runic raiments. Robes, known as the Wraps of Frost, are inked with hexes and draw power from the mummy they shroud. For 100 years, the power grows as it steeps in the mummy's dark energies. The Sith Code. A single unifying code can be derived from the Sith philosophy. The Jedi have a code, and we exiles know it well. But we also know it is full of inadequacies and half-truths. The Sith Purebloods require no mantra to remind them how to live. They simply take what they can, kill what they don't need, and use everything to its fullest. They are ruled by the fittest and are a model of what the dark side can achieve. There is knowledge to be gained from their example. If we are to create a Sith code, it must point to the failings of Jedi beliefs, while laying bare a path of mastery of the Force. It is plain that fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, hatred leads to power, power leads to victory. Rage channeled through anger is unstoppable. The common edition of the Codex of Master Simikardi translates the Jedi Code thusly: there is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. This code confines its adherents. Peace, serenity, and harmony are restatements of the same thing. The passive acceptance of limitations. The Jedi encourage this. But passion will always defeat peace. As we build our empire here on Zeos, our successors will hold true to the Sith Code. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The Force shall free me. The Prophecy of the Sith'ari. I know the Jedi myths of Mortis, of a chosen one who will destroy the dark side and bring balance to the Force. The Sith have their own prophecy. Since the times of King Adus, they are foretold of the coming of the perfect being, the Sith'ari. The avatar around my neck translates the term as Overlord. Yet it is more accurate to consider the Sith'ari a god, as the Sith Purebloods believe. While some among the Kasi priests deem that the prophecy began and ended with Adus, many more await the Sith'ari's return. It has not escaped us that we could claim the Sith'ari mantle and exert even more power over Sith space. Yet, such a move could backfire. Among the superstitious, not even Anjana Paul is so careless. The prophecy of the Sith'ari has been passed through the verbal traditions. It is too sacred to be inscribed on a scroll's parchment. From the Kasai, I have learned its essence. The Sith'ari will be free of limits. The Sith'ari will lead the Sith and destroy them. The Sith'ari will raise the Sith from death and make them stronger than before. I admire the first tenet because breaking chains is the essence of the dark side and the foundation of my own Sith code. Improvement, through sacrifice and rebirth, resonates among these people who prize breeding and alchemy. Though I have never put my faith in far-seeing, I remain convinced the Force called me here. Perhaps I am the Sith'ari. The Rule of Two. Power of the Sith. In that simple maximum is the entirety of the Sith philosophy. Where Lord Khan and my other lesser predecessor could not understand is that such a fundamental truth is not evidence of insight on my part, but rather stupidity on their part. The Force is not fire. It cannot be passed from one user's lit torch to another's and another's, until an entire hemisphere is illuminated with a blaze of 1,000,000 lights. This is what Khan foolishly believed, and all Sith Lords before him for the past 1,000 years. It is why the once mighty Sith fell apart long before the defeat of Ruusan. When all carry a flame, no matter how dim and gutting it may be, they soon conclude they are the brightest star around which all others must orbit. Infighting follows, and the Jedi victory becomes inevitable. No, the Force is venom. If it is poured into many cups, it loses its potency, until it becomes so diluted it is merely an irritant. Yet, pour those cups back into a single vessel, and you will have a power to stop a krayt dragon's heart. This is the secret. This is the rule of 2. One Sith must contain all the power of the dark side. One Master must decide how that power shall be used. Sharing power is an act of weakness and a violation of the Sith Code. Yet, the Sith Order must survive after the Master perishes. For this reason, the Master must take in an apprentice. The Master instructs the pupil, but never gives up the smallest sliver of power. The apprentice learns through years of study, but must struggle for every achievement. If the apprentice becomes strong enough, a battle to the death will prove it. If the Master should be struck down, the apprentice becomes the Master, and the order continues. Together, the two may attract legions of minions, but true power will remain concentrated, always two, a Master and an apprentice. The mistakes of Ruusan. All are equal in the Brotherhood of Darkness. Those putrid words fell from the lips of Lord Khan more times than I care to remember. This central lie upon which Khan built his false Sith is the reason behind their watery, diluted power. The so-called New Sith Wars lasted 1,000 years. Many warlords during that time sought to control the destiny of the Sith Empire. They achieved victories from the Battle of Missouri to the Sictus Wars, but those were victorious without a clear line of succession. Every Sith wanted to be king, and so we argued while the Republic grew frail. Its citizens sickened with the plague, and became isolated by a decaying infrastructure. Coruscant's throat lay bare beneath our blades, but the Sith plunged their knives into another's back instead. Khan was not the worst of these fools, only the last. Khan created the Brotherhood of Darkness to end the squabbling, but he chose a false elitarianism over a strong central rule. Within the Brotherhood, all members with rank could call themselves Sith Lords. This was Khan's first mistake. I served in the Brotherhood of Darkness as a sergeant assigned to the Gloomwalkers, and led my comrades in the capture of Fazim. If we had maintained a sound military strategy and followed an orderly conquest, the Republic would have been ours. But Khan was impatient. He overreached and leaped into the Boromir sector, the Republic's heart, before it was time. This was his second mistake. Khan's third and final mistake came at Ruusan, a worthless world where he hoped to defeat Lord Hoth and the Jedi Army of the Light. He was instead goaded into grinding land war of the needless attrition. I watched it unfold and knew the Sith had become like the Jedi, too numerous and too weak. Khan had lost his grip. In the end, Khan followed my suggestion and pooled the abilities of the other Sith Lords to create a brute force wonder, the Thought Bomb. This was proof of what the dark side could achieve when it wasn't split among thousands. However, the Thought Bomb consumed not only the Jedi combatants, but also the Sith who had created it. It ended the war and exterminated Lord Khan's Brotherhood. The title of Darth. If my plan had not worked and Khan had not killed himself with the Thought Bomb, I would have been forced to kill him myself. The annihilation of Ruusan was a gift, wiping out all those who were not worthy. I, Darth Bane, and my apprentice Darth Zena, survived and returned the potency of the Sith to our hands, so the rule of 2 could be instituted. It is no accident that I took the title of Darth when I gained a mastery of the dark side, nor is it accident that Khan and his followers rejected it. It is a title of power. It carries authority and is crowned by the judgment of history. It symbolizes transformation. When I took Darth as my title, I put away my childhood name. What does it matter that I was once a miner or a soldier? The only thing that matters is what I will achieve. Some believe that Darth itself is derived from the ancient Rakuten term Dartur, meaning triumph over death, or Darthra, meaning emperor. But the word's true meaning does not come from any language, but from the proud histories and accomplishments of those who have borne the title. Darth and Edu, the god king of Prakith, who sought to live forever. Darth Revan and Darth Malak, who built a new Sith Empire that rivaled the Republic in its influence across the galaxy. Darth Malgus, who led his troops into the Jedi Temple during the sacking of Coruscant. Darth Ruin, who left the Jedi Order to pursue his monomaniacal philosophy of self-interest and gave rise to the 1,000-Year War that concluded at Ruusan, and who was among the last to hold the Darth title until I took it up again. Lord Khan preached all were equal in the Brotherhood of Darkness, but he did not dare to appoint 1,000 Darths. In fact, he did not permit the use of the title at all. Perhaps he sensed its inherent power, that an individual who held the title would not allow rivals to live. Perhaps its use would have forced Khan to confront the truth that his approach to the Force was a disgrace. I restored the title of Darth to the rule of 2 so that only the worthy may hold it from this time until the end of time. Striking from the shadows. The Sith of old brazenly and publicly announced their superiority. In this they were correct. They were mistaken, though, if they thought no legion of enemies would rise up against them. The Sith have always been smeared as wicked, evil beings, no different from the demons of child's tales who lurk in dark places with dripping fangs. Because submission to such horror is unthinkable, many believe they fight or face extermination. The Jedi is shameless in spreading this alarmist propaganda. Under the rule of 2, the Sith will operate in secrecy, feeding the belief that the Sith are a thing of the past, forgotten in their graves on Ruusan. We must not make our presence known. The dark side of the Force is finally concentrated. It gives the two beings unlimited power, but the Sith cannot afford the loss of either of you. Do not make yourselves a target. Even a Sith Lord can be felled by 1,000 enemies. If there exists a single being who believes in the continued existence of the Sith, kill him. If a group learns the secret, you must resort to subterfuge and misdirection. At one point, the Jedi believed that they had evidence of my own survival after Ruusan. My apprentice and I concocted a ruse in which she drove her brother insane and made him appear to be the terrible Sith Lord. This satisfied the Jedi need to assign blame, and they moved on. The Sith Order is now a lineage. Given your skills, you should find it a simple matter to amass wealth, and thus, with each succession, the resources of the Sith will increase. Do not build palaces, for they will draw attention. Use your money to hire spies, scholars, assassins, trainers, guards, and thieves. All will prove useful, and the shine of credits will distract them from your true nature. Selecting an apprentice. Again, the Sith Order is a lineage. It must not end with you. I will not allow my new Sith Order to expire because you are unworthy or too protective to bequeath your power. Know this, your apprentice will kill you. If this fact frightens you, then the Sith Order has already suffered a fatal infection. Your existence in the Order is not needed. Your battle has already been lost. A Sith apprentice must grow in strength and skill until he or she can surpass the Master. Anything else is just regression. Would you have a Sith become like the kings of Shawak, whose dominion crumbled into ruin? Or do you believe you will live forever? You are not wrong to covet that secret, but I have sought to prolong my own life. But in the extreme, this leads to a narcissism and a lack of focus on the rule of 2. To be a Sith Lord is to outthink your enemies and to plan for any eventuality. A proper apprentice will ensure the Sith endure, no matter what fate may come on your head. Many Force-sensitive beings exist among the stars. Seek out those who have not yet been discovered or subjected to Jedi corruption. You'll find it easier to mold the young, for their bodies and minds are still in flux. You may wish to train several candidates at once. Their rivalry will force their initial natures to the surface, making it unlikely they will join forces against you. Tell them only one will survive to become your apprentice. Let them defeat one another in combat, betray one another in their sleep, or play with one's suspicions and intentions. All are admirable skills for a future Sith Lord. Then watch as they destroy one another. I did not have the luxury of employing this method when selecting my own apprentice, but if she could prove reluctant to take my place, I will train a second apprentice to replace her. The talented and the ambitious will receive the reward. The rest will taste only ashes. The Revenge of the Sith. Under the rule of 2, the Sith will concentrate power in one master and one apprentice, so that one day we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. Eventually, we will have revenge. Galactic civilization is an empty term when that civilization lacks leadership. Given a clear vision and the means to enact it, a Sith regime could build great wonders in defiance of the natural laws of silence, stillness, and ruin. Khan was a fool, but he was right in one thing. The laws of the current republic only abet those chaotic forces, and only the Sith way leads to mastery over entropy. The Jedi path teaches harmony and peace, but if all we aspired to harmony, then intelligent beings would still be scratching for food from rotted tree stumps. The dark side of the Force is both enabler and a guide. To advance the cause of the Sith, you must fight those who would hold you back progress. You and those who succeed you are building an arsenal of dark side potency. One day it will contain the power to destroy the Jedi and bring purpose to the Force. Remember the code of the Sith. There is no peace, only passion. In creating a new regime, the Sith will defeat the complacency of the Jedi, and what we create will be glorious. Personal combat. I have stated that the Force is venom. Because you are a Sith Lord, you realize the truth in my words. You cannot dilute your power. You must also keep yourself strong, not only in numbers, but in combat. The purest expression of victory is through combat. I will not permit my legacy to become a blurred copy of a copy. These pages contain what you must know if you wish to defeat an enemy with a lightsaber or the Force. Do not rely solely on what your own master has taught you. Study these arts. Drink directly from the source. Lightsaber construction. The lightsaber is the weapon of a Sith Lord. Properly wielded, it is an extension of your body, a limb that requires no conscious thought to move or position. If you lose your lightsaber, it should feel as if you'd suffer an amputation. The Jedi also carry lightsabers. They harvest their lightsaber crystals from a mine. The Sith, however, have long had a superior alternative. Raw elements cooked in a broad furnace will produce an artificial crystal, one that can generate an energy blade that will burn with a bright crimson red light. Because this artificial crystal is forged through darkside meditation, it carries the essence of your will. Know that your red blade is strong and can break the green and blue blades of the Jedi. Such results are proof that an individual can overcome anything in nature. Sith lightsaber variants. The remaining components of the lightsaber can be assimilated from everyday materials or the rarest metals. It matters little, so long as the Celadon heart has been forged by your will. The other elements, a power cell, an emitter matrix, a magnetic emitter ring, or focusing lens, will be placed around the red shard within the hilt. The crystal is special, but these pieces are replaceable. Use them, replace them, but always ensure that the crystal and the blade are bright and strong. Depending on your choosing fighting style, you may incorporate innovations in your lightsaber hilt that will aid you. You should not care for ceremony, only for results. If an innovation works, do not hesitate to use it, and if it proves superfluous, remove it immediately. Blade lock. A small notch added next to the activation stud will make it possible to leave the blade extended after it leaves your hand. This is useful for throwing, but can prove dangerous if the lightsaber is jarred out of your hands or buffed from a force push. Pressure grip. This customization replaces an activation stud and assures that the lightsaber will ignite only when held. If you align the pressure grip to your unique biology, you will be the only one who can activate it. Force activation. With this configuration, the circuit that connects the power cell to the crystal can only be completed with your mental energy. Only you can wield such a lightsaber. But if your attention lags during combat, the blade may blink off. A Berserk hilt. Berserk, also known as Mandalorian iron, is resistant to a lightsaber blow. This material is extremely rare, but if you choose to incorporate it in your hilt design, it can be used to intercept a Jedi blade. Lightsaber combat. The Jedi teach 6 forms of lightsaber combat. This is excessive and a waste of time. There is no need for a Sith Lord to study any form that does not channel one's aggression. A battle should end quickly. At every moment, one should be assessing the ways to dispatch one's opponent. Select the most direct method. There are 2 key forms of lightsaber combat a Sith must master: strong style and fast style. The latter emphasizes footwork, speed, precision, and acrobatics. With some exceptions, such as the tactics of my own apprentice, fast style is rarely suited for a Sith. The dark side supplies us with strength, and that strength must be used. Hate makes us powerful. Strong style is expressed in Gemso, an ancient philosophy that requires you to combine your body weight and your muscular strength with the energizing drug of anger so that the execution of your blows will land with enough force to crack armor. When used for defense, Gemso turns an attack back on an attacker. If you deflect a blade in a vulnerable angle, it will draw your opponent in close enough for a gutting slash or an elbow to the face. Directing a blow may also draw your enemy into a blade lock, which is easily won with the strength of your arm and the power of your hate. Another facet of strong style defense is Shen, or blocking incoming blaster fire. When generating this defense, some choose to use a reverse grip on the lightsaber hilt. Sith Shen should be a temporary measure, used only long enough to shorten the blade distance to your opponent or to recover from a kill so that you may find your next target. Deflecting bolts against your attackers can be useful, but be aware that this tactic is a waste of your physical prowess. Any combat situation or style can be enhanced by the use of Don Mok. This tactic employs taunts and verbal attacks to weaken your enemy's will. It takes only a few words to expose your opponent's lack of confidence and to lay it out to manipulation. There is a third style, though it is exceedingly difficult. It is called Jayu, or as my battle blade master obscurely referred to it, Vapad, and is a style that Jedi foolishly forbid. The key to the style is the same as our core belief: emotion, not peace, will lead to victory. With Jayu, you must give yourself over to sensations you feel in the heat of battle, hatred for your enemies, fury towards their actions, and fear that they may prevail. Yes, fear. It is foolish to cover this emotion behind pride. Fear of death, fear of loss, fear of chaos are primal motivators. Fear can be your fuel. Joyu is based on quick strikes and unpredictable attacks. But you are not fully embracing this style unless your emotions ignite your senses and elevate your abilities. But do not succumb completely to your emotions. You are a Sith Lord, not an animal. As you take aim and fight through the tunnel of rage, you will experience transcendence. In that moment, you are a perfect being and you cannot be beaten. You are at last embraced within Jayu. Using the Saber Staff. The double-bladed lightsaber, or saber staff, has been known as a Sith weapon since the time of Exar Kun. I studied under the Blade Master Kasim and learned its secrets. It is a difficult weapon. The saber staff may be constructed as a single piece, or it may simply be two interconnecting saber hilts that can be detached for two-handed combat. It is best used in wide, sweeping movements, while the hilt remains close to the body. It requires a firm stance and a two-handed grip. Novices are likely to injure themselves while training, which will expose the flaws in their technique. Punishment can be a great teacher. Do not be confused into thinking they are two blades. The blades are connected. If you know the position of one, you know the position of the other. But while both blades are in motion, you can choose to extinguish one blade and surprise your enemy with a sword-fighting lunge or rispettos. The saber staff is ideal for defeating multiple opponents as well as defending against blaster fire. The broad energy barrier created by a whirling saber staff is impenetrable when deployed by a skilled Sith Lord. One who possesses the precognition ability to sense the timing and the vector of a strike. But this type of barrier defense should be used only temporarily while you close the distance separating from you to your attacker to deliver a fatal slash. Do not feel you must learn everything from your master or that you must shoulder the burden of every instruction to your apprentice. The Alien Nova Guard, the Nikto Mekga, and the Senge Divicious have all elevated combat into an art form. Hire those who prove useful to your combat education or employ them as assassins or guards. Among their members, look for those who may be touched by the Force. They could become an acolyte or a pool from which to pluck your next apprentice. However, if they learn more of our ways than you are comfortable sharing, kill them. Sith Armor. The war against the Jedi birthed great advances in personal combat on both sides. Armorers consistently improved their wares, but lightsaber technology remained constant. By the war's end, a fully armored Jedi Padawan could face a Sith Marauder and survive the first exchange. Donning armor requires understanding two things: how to kill an armored opponent, and how to use armor to protect yourself from counterattacks. The first comes with combat training. The second requires an understanding of the material that can withstand a lightsaber blow while still allowing some measure of mobility for the wearer. If you are accustomed to unarmed sparring, it is best to begin with armor weave. This material incorporates a lightweight metallic mesh that maintaining the flexibility of the cloth. Armor weave can be arranged to form pieces of fabric armor, or it can be worn as a cloak. It will guard against acids and flame. It can diffuse the energy of blaster bolts, though not their kinetic impact. A lightsaber's point can burn through armor weave, but it will allow you to shrug off glancing blows made with a blade's edge. Beskar Kandar is a plate armor cast from Mandalorian iron. Although it is nearly impervious to a lightsaber blade, it is extremely heavy and requires the wearer to rely on strong style or gemso combat stance. Unique to the Sith is dark armor, plate armor that is infused with the darkside essence through Sith alchemy. These suits, once rare, poured from the workshops of Sith armorers during the last war. Many became prizes for battlefield scavengers. Dark armor can almost certainly be found among the black marketeers of the world. If one is discovered, it should be reclaimed, and those who seek to profit from our legacy should be eliminated. The shells of obelisks are quite impervious to lightsabers and can make a fine coat of armor. I myself have tested this bizarre panoply. These parasites breed in the tombs of dukes. If placed on the skin, they latch on, feeding on force energy, releasing adrenaline. Once attached, their bodies can almost never be removed. The protection offered by armor can be augmented with a shield held in your offhand. A shield of polished Bekar can be used as a bashing weapon. Its edges can be honed to razor sharpness and can be used to slice or kill. Darkside Combat. You are a Sith Lord, not merely a fighter who knows how to hold a blade. The Force has given you the tools to defeat your enemies. During combat, the dark side crawls beneath your skin and electrifies the air surrounding you. If you fail to channel it during these moments, you are unworthy of the Sith title. There are 3 schools or focuses of Force combat that channel the dark side: offense, body, and mind. Study all 3, learn which to apply during the fury of a fight, and pass on what you have learned to your apprentice. None of this is to be kept for your own benefit. Remember, the Sith Order is more important than one Sith Lord. Offense encompasses the Force skills with immediate dynamic application for lightsaber combat. All require relatively little exertion, so they can easily be applied at any moment. Think of offense as a dagger saved and reserved for a final thrust. The skills of offense include push, a kinetic wave that emerges from your hand or head and can knock a single enemy off balance or scatter a group in all directions. Choke, a telekinetic grip, which when centered on an enemy's neck can pinch its airflow and snap vertebrae. This requires more concentration than a push, as well as a free hand to form the control fist. The neck is an easy target because of its soft vulnerability, but strong users of the choke can crush an entire body, including armor. Inertia, an amplification of your body's momentum that uses the Force to redirect what looks like a lumbering charge into a hooking lunge. This can surprise an enemy by making your moves unpredictable. Blind, a burst of Force energy that overwhelms an enemy's optic nerves and renders them momentarily blind. Throw, a Force tactic in which you can control the path of your lightsaber when thrown. You could send it pinwheeling through the clusters of ambushers before returning it to your grip. With refinement, the tactic can be used to aim and accelerate any thrown object, such as a stone or thermal detonator. The second school, or focus, body, encompasses those abilities that draw from the living Force. They emanate from your own cells and affect the physical structures of others. For this reason, any cyborg limb or enhancement will hinder your ability to conjure the effects of body. This is not your failing, it is the law of the living Force. The demands of the dark side can ravage the flesh, but fortunately it is possible to balance the scales by siphoning life from another to bolster your own. Lightning, a weapon that calls forth electrical bolts from your fingertips. It is the embodiment of your wrath that can strike at the heart of your enemy. The lightning crawls across the skin and sends surges of pain through internal organs. Sustained exposure will roast flesh, calcify the skeleton, and stop the heart. Convection, a concentration of Force energy that can make your fists hot to the touch, even raise their temperature to a burning intensity, but will cause no lasting injury to you. Strike an opponent with these fists can raise blisters and set robes aflame. Pyrokinesis, a siphoning of essence that leaches the life intensity from another, leaving behind a frost-shrouded corpse. Though this tactic usually causes the heat vitality of another being to hemorrhage, it is not possible to channel that vitality for your own use. Drain life, a delicate procedure that saps the life energy of another and funnels it directly into your own essence. It is extremely difficult to employ in combat and is derived from the teachings of Zelashiel, the Blasphemer, in the Holocron of Darth Revan. Death Field, an unstoppable concentration of dark side energy projected from your physical animus in the shape of a sphere. Any living being entering the field will wither into a dry husk. It is sustained by your will, but it will try to consume you as well. The third school, or focus, mind, encompasses those abilities that draw from the unifying force. These operate on a different plane than the physical. They exist in the realm of thought and memory. The disciplines of mind require intense concentration and are mentally taxing. Physical strength will not help you here, only psychic clarity. Mind shard, a sliver of psychic pain that is hurled from your own consciousness into your enemy's brain. If your attack succeeds, the intense agony will leave your opponent vulnerable to a lightsaber lunge. It can be difficult to establish a mental lock, but your success will improve if the ability is used in conjunction with the verbal taunts of Don Moksh. Memory walk, a link that could open your enemy's mind and make it possible for you to compel them to relive tragedy or humiliating recollection and bring forth layers of shame. Used for sustained periods, memory walk can be a sophisticated method of interrogation. The technique was stolen from the Guild of Vindicators, whose descendants are zealous about uncovering the sins of others. Hatred, a method of focusing your inner fire so that it can be stoked with outrage, disgust, and fear until it burns with white-hot intensity. When smashed, this furnace will radiate hatred from you in palpable waves that can send another's mind into catatonic state. Horror, a simple mental manipulation that can raise fear in the mind of another. By amplifying this primal emotion, you can trigger horror and eventually insanity. An afflicted target will be too haunted to raise any defense. Cruciatorn, a technique that makes it possible to detach one's mind from coarse sensations. The secret to overcoming physical pain lies in the non-physical. A master of this technique can endure any torture and withstand any injury. The Writings of the Nightsisters. My sisters, the galaxy has taken note of us, and the powerful will pay for our service. Our skills are superior, honed on the wild beasts of Dathomir. The most skilled among our members will leave this world to act as bodyguards and hunters of those who require the service. This will bring prosperity to your fellow sisters and honor to you. But during your time away, you must not forget what Dathomir has given you. Although space is cold and empty, Dathomir's wilderness is lush and rich. It may be years before you return, so never forget the place that birthed and nurtured you. You'll always be a Nightsister. Among the galaxy's many species, you will encounter numerous beliefs, nearly all claiming to be the one true belief. Not all these contradictory ways can be true. It follows, therefore, that none are true. The realization reaffirms the wild magics of the daughters of Alea. Our shamanism saturates the galaxy, influencing other traditions, even if their practitioners are unaware of it. It flows from a single wellspring, the life web of Dathomir. I have served as both shaman and the clan mother of our Nightsister tribe for many years. Most of you have never known another in this role. Through my hands and eyes, the spirits have maintained their hold on our realm. It is a core truth of the Nightsisters that the spirit plane exists parallel to our own. It is inhabited by the essence of animals, nature's forces, and our own ancestors. Yet it is ruled by the manifestations of female and male energy. The spirits bestow fertility upon our tribe and visit us when sickness and death came upon one of our sisters, as well to claim the spirits of those who have fallen. Only here on Dathomir, however, are the two realms close enough for us to see their shapes, and only here is there an intermediate to act on the tribe's behalf. A shaman of the Nightsisters can cross the valleys of death and dream to carry messages between the spiritual and the physical worlds. The spirits first called upon me as I lay cold and trembling, struck with a fatal affliction, while birthing my first daughter. It was at that moment, suspended between life and death and bathed in the light of Dathomir's 4 moons, that I saw clearly the matching landscapes of both realms. It was then that I grasped how living beings are fleshy physical shadows of their spirits, and that spirits live on after their flesh have been cast aside. I passed the challenge. The spirits restored my health, and I willingly became their conduit. The spirits pull upon the folds of my robe as I walk, and echo beneath my voice when I speak. These writings are not merely my words, but the commands of the spirits. Challenge my authority, and you challenge life yourself. The living force and the dark side. Other groups, like those of the Jedi and the Sith, use strange, cold terms to describe the work of the spirits. They talk to the unifying force and the living force, of the light side and the dark side. We must forgive their ignorance, for they are not shamans of Dathomir. Their leaders cannot understand such concepts without enduring a trial such as mine. There is no need to separate what they call the living force from the unifying force. Both are manifestations of the twin deities, and both vibrantly, overwhelmingly alive. This classification of light side and dark side is also misguided. It is Yule to kill. Would those who answer yes be satisfied if predators starved so grazers can strip the land unopposed only to die amid famine? Is this the bloodless utopia envisioned by the moralistic Jedi? What the Jedi call the dark side, Nightsisters know to be the essence of life. Even some of our witch clans have made the same error as the Jedi, ignoring those spirit voices that call for blood and labeling them as evil. My sisters, do not concern yourselves with dark side or light side. That is the language of the outsiders. Our abilities were bestowed by the spirits. The winged goddess and the fanged god bestow the passive and aggressive energies that animate every creature and allow each to draw breath. Would you choose to deny yourself? Do not limit your scope by obeying artificial rules. The history of Dathomir. How do we know our homeworld is unique among all the planets of the cosmos? I have a shaman's eye, and I have seen the proof. I have watched the spirits travel from one realm to another by means of smoky tether that is anchored to our forests. If you study the histories of the outsiders, you will find only validation of my words. Throughout recorded time, great civilizations have always been drawn to Dathomir. The packs of Rao Kyo, which hunt in the scrub fringe of the tar pits, are the primitive descendants of the intelligent beings called the Qua. They once held the favor of the spirits. The Qua built infinity gates to travel to other stars, but their machines created unnatural voids and wounded Dathomir. Angry, the spirits summoned the Rakata Empire to demolish the Qua. The spirits forced the Qua back to their animal state so they might never again work technology. Over the millennia, the spirits called many other groups to Dathomir for purposes of their own. The peons came, made their homes here, and had many children. So too did the Sith. They recognized the raw power of Dathomir, but could not perceive its true shape. Many years after, the Sith abandoned their Dathomir academies. The Jedi exiled one of their own to this world. You know her as Aleia, mother of all witches. Aleia held the favor of the spirits, and her daughters became the first crafters of spirit-willed magic. Centuries later, the Jedi returned. Their great training ship, the Ku'uthar, was called to our shores, and the Jedi who came to reclaim it could not match our strength. Even their master Yoda, the strongest of all the Jedi, abandoned the prize and fled. Few visitors have come to Dathomir since then, but the Nightsisters spread throughout the galaxy after I unified the clans, following the feet of Mother Zalem. By performing missions and services for others, we are making the galaxy aware of our ways and enforcing the will of the spirits. The history of the Nightsisters. It is a blessing to be born in Dathomir, and a burden. We are the favored people of the spirits, and much is expected of us. We must not mar our home with the pollution of technology. We must obey our clan mothers and shamans. We must revere the rituals that bind the physical and spiritual realms. With such simple edicts, it is disappointing that so many witches have failed to obey them. The writings of Alea teach that those who choose ignorance will never know greatness, and those who fear death will never achieve power. But after Alea's death, some of her daughters, perhaps weakened by the Jedi blood in their veins, added to Alea's words by introducing good and evil. They claimed that Alea had espoused the blasphemy during the last moments of her life. These witches called their altered text the Book of Law. Those who rejected the altered text and held true to Alea's pure words became the first Nightsisters. Our Nightsister ancestors were banished from the home clans for their beliefs. But among their fellow believers, they restored the text to Alea's original teachings, to the balance of the physical realm and the spiritual realm. They named their volume a Book of Shadows. In the past, competing Nightsister clans have coexisted, each led by a clan mother and shaman. Except in cases where two figures are one of the same, but I have united my warring sisters into a single coven. Every witch of Dathomir knows what males lack the ability the females passes to the balance, the twin called the Winged Goddess and the Fanged God. Males are simpler, more beast-like. We honor our Night Brothers, but among our clan, we recognize that they serve the spirits better when kept in isolation. In the past, other clans integrated their males as servants or slaves, but our Night Brothers are kept separated until summoned. In their compound, they naturally form a pack-like structure and channel their Ural energy into combat training. The Winged Goddess. In the spirit realm, the Winged Goddess appears as the blinding white Graphon. It is she who governs fertility and growth, and she who acts as a mediator to reconcile wounded parties. She knows everything that has occurred and everything that is yet to come. Channeling the Winged Goddess brings forth great quantities of clear ichor into the physical realm. This ichor appears as a green smoke, but it can be given physical shape in mass as well as be manipulated into spellcasting by a gifted shaman such as myself. A skilled shaman may conjure objects from raw spirit ichor. The conjured object is everlasting and can take many forms such as hunting lance or a goblet of boiled blackroot. Divination and scrying are achieved by shaping the spirit ichor into a sphere and peering into its depths. Through scrying, a shaman can view even events occurring anywhere in the galaxy. Divination or heart shadow calls forth visions of possible futures. Through this art, I have learned the fall of empires, yet to come and how to protect the Nightsisters from those who would seek to exploit us. In spellcasting, spirit ichor can become the waters of life and be used to heal wounds or restore memories. When used in conjunction with crafters chanting incantations, I can channel the ichor to rejuvenate the near dead by coaxing the injured spirit to emerge from hibernation. Mesmerization is also another gift provided by spirit ichor. This power allows a shaman to override the thoughts of those weaker than oneself, particularly men and offworlders. A tap of the fingertip to the victim's forehead will induce a trance-like state and make the victim powerless to refuse your commands. Another form of control is achieved by crafting a small statue of a victim, combining a strand of hair and rolling cauldron brimming with waters of life. This crude figure may be stabbed with wooden needles or weakened with a breath of miasma. Any harm done to the totem will be felt by the victim it resembles, but nothing comes without a cost. The effort required for the shaman to summon such quantities of ichor can prove exhausting. I do not wish to disturb the Winged Goddess with endless supplications, but in times of severe distress, I've used a shaman's connection to directly invoke spirits. When the call succeeds, the specters of long-ago warriors will glow into view. Heralded by a rush of wind, they will change and charge a target while uttering a shriek that emanates from every direction at once. The Fanged God. The Fanged God appears as a night black gargoyle in the spirit realm. He governs virality in the hunt. He also communicates with smells, sounds, and tastes. He is the counterpart of the winged goddess and is equally important to the governance of the spirit realm. As Nightsisters, you draw from both pools and thus keep the universal energies in balance. The magic of the Fanged God is so powerful that channeling it can burst minor blood vessels in your physical bodies, raising telltale bruises on the cheeks and around the eyes. These marks were once considered scars of shame by the passive witches who revered the Book of Law. Yet, they are brands of honor. Our tradition of facial tattooing reclaims this history for ourselves and announces to the galaxy that we are Nightsisters. And while our Night Brothers are kept separate, they are marked as our kin and our warriors by the tattooing of their chests and face. It is the Fanged God who conjures up the wild hunt each year, when the moons are at their brightest and the snows have vanished from the slopes of the shattered ridge. I have seen the dark figures with glowing pale eyes as they gallop through the forest. I have heard their hunt calls as they carry those who cross in their paths back to the abode of the ethereal riders. The Fanged God is close to you at all times. He seeps through the border separating the two realms and does not require as much effort to channel. Every time you fight or feast or bleed, you are communing with the Fanged God. As girls, you learn to speak with our planet's native rancors and to ride them. The realm beyond shadows contains a single Earth spirit for each of the galaxy's animal species. And just as you did with rancors, you can do with your spirits. Once you acquire the tongue of a particular ore spirit, you can understand any creature of that type. Once you can communicate with that creature, you can calm it. Once you can calm it, you can control it. The most skilled Nightsisters who study this art hold the rank of Beast Warden. Because the Fanged God governs the hunt, he is present during tracking, sacrifice, and the drinking of blood. He can sharpen your perceptions to set you on the path to the most elusive prey, even when you are far from Dathomir. It is he who gifts us with the blood trial, a technique in which you place a drop of your own blood on a target and use that link to track your quarry across the stars. It is a technique known only to the Nightsisters. Talismans and Totems. As clan shaman, it is within my power to entreat the spirits. Because the Nightsisters are their favored children, they may agree to empower a receptacle in the physical realm where their essence will sleep until summoned. These receptacles, crafted by shamans into talismans and totems, may hold their power for generations. Talismans are often gems set in rings or pendants. Totems are carved objects depicting an animal or a spirit entity. When kept within a dwelling, these objects offer a blessing to all who pass the doorway. Those who swallow a totem will release all its energy into themselves, though their openness and last only moments. For when the spirit is released from the object, it returns to the spirit realm and reduces the body to ash. Talismans of Transformation allows the wearer to change shape in the physical realm, to become an animal and tap into the animal spirit essence, for example. Nightsisters possess several Talismans of Transformation: the Bulma, the Braxit, the Ola, the Burrow Fish. One of our sisters has yet to return the Talisman of the Raven. The Talisman of Age taps into the animal nature of humans and briefly restores the vigor of youth. Talisman of Finding are shaped to resemble a compass and will guide the user to any target that has been imprinted upon it. Talisman of Resurrection can bring the spirits of the dead back to the physical bodies. It is vital to remember, however, that if too much time has passed, their forms may be little than a skeleton. Finally, the Talisman of Counterspell offers protection from the magics of others by deflecting curses back onto the casters. Totems of the Elementals can summon night, sunlight, smoke, ice, flame, clay, and wood rat. These are powerful, primal entities, so they may not always obey your bidding. Totems of Familiars are also welcoming. They will call an animal to your side and hold the animal there as long as you possess the totem. The summoned beast is blessed with magic. The energies of these familiars help crafters accomplish some of the most difficult magics. Beasts of Dathomir. The living creatures of our home are too numerous to name. They create a life web that is stronger than those found on any other planet in the galaxy. This is because Dathomir is a conduit to the spirit realm and the keystone upon which all reality is balanced. Skilled Nightsisters can channel the abilities of the Dathomir beasts they have never met simply by recognizing their spirit sense. While you're in other parts of the galaxy, it is essential to keep your success that you frequently reacquaint yourself with our brother and sister animals. When you know their natures, you can better channel their qualities. The practice will also reestablish your connection with the life web if you have spent too many days among the machines of the off-worlders, especially the accursed mausoleum of glass and steel called Coruscant. The Great Rancor is the ruler of all beasts on Dathomir, spawned from the ferocity of the Fanged God and the insight of the Winged Goddess. It is a fierce fighter that rakes with its claws and tears with its powerful teeth. Yet Rancors are wise and tender towards their own. Their arms help them swing through the canopy to hunt screeching Purebloods, and their massive legs propel their lumbering runs when they pursue fleeing Palma herds. The Nightsisters connect with them, speak with them, and ride them. Be like the Rancor and you will hold authority in any confrontation you face among outsiders. The Drebin and the Surians are also major predators in Dathomir. Their thick hides allow them to ignore most irritants, and other creatures have learned to look back away when they see one of these creatures for fear they will disappear in a snap of teeth. Like the Drebin and the Surians, we do not need to change or accommodate these smaller and weaker than us. Other beasts of the wild that do not have the biggest muscles or the sharpest claws possess more devilish methods to achieve their ends. The artery worm strikes from inside, traveling the blood upstream and killing its host in an exquisite agony when it reaches the heart. The Votoro lizard and the Kodashi viper trade sides for poison and announce their malevolence with bright colors and vivid patterns. Remember this when donning the cloth, markings, and weapons of a Nightsister. An intimidating appearance will frighten away those who are not fully committed to a fight. Every time we eat the meal of a wafa worm and wear its skin, we are reminded that life is connected. Look at the gibbet bird, which picks the scraps from the Rancor's teeth. The Rancor is cleaned, the bird is fed, and both parties benefit. Like the wild animals, regardless of size, you are never defenseless. Small threats can be deadly threats. Consider the sparkfly, which has a sting that contains all the energies of the sky's lightning. Or the scissor fist, which has claws that when latched on to an attacker's skin can never be pried off. Even the mighty Rancor may be felled by shear mites, which can chew through its hide and their acid-laced mandibles. Do not fear your enemies. Life always persists. Even a savage, blood-drenched death only returns your spirit to the realm beyond shadows. Nature's Vigor. The echoes of the Fanged God can be heard throughout the air of Dathomir, from the sound of the snuffling mogs hidden in the layers to the screeches of the Axis circling their eyries atop the singing mountain. The earth spirits of animals are red and raw, but the twin spirit of plants pulses with a deep green. You're an animal yourself and still a part of Dathomir's life web, even when you find yourself inside a hollow metal starship around a cold star. You can always tap into the power of the spirits. Fan the fires of the bestial nature, and you will share the abilities of the beasts themselves. Predators possess a degree of awareness that we do not. By invoking the ability known as the Sense of the Ashet, you will distinguish scents carried on the wind from hundreds of meters away, and will be able to see into blackness even when the moons have hid their faces. If you invoke the ears of Cypertex, you will hear whispers and be able to point pictures of hidden places from their sounds. Some beasts must be nimble to avoid predators as well as catch their prey. By invoking the speed of Tocha, you will be imbued with a short burst of blinding fast speed and energized leaps to cover remarkable distances. Both can be useful for escape or surprise. Invoking the touch of Kindre applies a binding force to your hands and feet, enabling you to scramble up a cliff face or to hold a weapon in a grip no one can break. The Wafa's power of regeneration has a host of combat uses. The revitalization of the Wafa can refresh the body, or if one's will is sufficient, allow the regrowth of a limb. The scream of the Sirion can bring forth the deep thrumming vibrations of the great dragon's hunting call, as well as the ear-splitting shriek of its territorial warning. When directed at an enemy, the wave of sound will pop eardrums and shatter teeth. Compared to the animal essences, the green spirits of the plants are quieter and more content, but they are not without uses. Invoking them will generate calming aura of meditation or break down a poison once it's infected the bloodstream. With the Surge of the Briar, you can reach into the spirit realm and grip the essence of Sithil plant. Pull and twist the plant's physical form into a shape of your choosing. By doing this, you can wrap your enemies in vines or impale them with thorns. Even weather has a spirit. Its formless expanse glows from the blue-black hue of the heavens before moonrise. The aspect of the storm will allow you to shape this inky fabric into the bright white threads of lightning strikes. Deeper summoning will bring forth winds that can carry you through the sky. The air may also carry you aloft within a green sphere of energy, just as a foam rises from a churning waterfall. Within this bubble, you are protected from enemies while hurling lightning on their heads. Training a warrior. The means to produce the finest warriors and assassins in the galaxy are at our fingertips, and they have commanded the highest prices on the galactic market. Our abilities are paying off. If you have left our fold, know that your service sustains us and validates our traditions. You are an agent of the Nightsisters, and more must follow in your path. If you do not have a current assignment, you should train others to achieve your rank. All Nightsisters and Nightbrothers have trained since they were young to use our weapons, the pike, the mace, the spear, the axe, and the chain sickle. Those worthy to become warriors or assassins must be tested to prove their skill. In the arena of the Crucible, the candidates face 3 tests: the tests of Fury, Night, and Elevation. Any who fails a test will be eliminated. In the test of Fury, the candidates are pitted against one another or against their instructor. Some may form alliances for advantage, whereas others may stand alone and against all challengers. Either response is useful in determining a candidate's temperament for battle. When the moons are low and all light has been extinguished, the test of Night may be held. The candidates fight much like they do in the test of Fury, but without eyesight. Some candidates may exhibit preternatural senses or a gift for stealth. Some may even have the presence of the mind to channel ears of the Cyperlex. During the test of Elevation, the Crucible's moving pillars are activated. Combatants are left unsure if their footing, as if fighting on shifting sand. Those with cunning will use the stone blocks as cover for ambushers. Those with aggression will use the high ground to pounce upon their prey. The most skilled combatants will not only survive the crucible, but will dominate the battles. These are the most fit for a future off-world assignment. Instruction and transformation. Those who pass the test of the crucible may be suited for further training. There are 3 categories of skill we offer off-world clients: Hunter, Warrior, and Shadow Killer. But no matter what your role, you should always wear the clothing and accoutrements that brand you as a Dathomirian, for through your visibility our reputation will spread. Hunters should wear the red hoods and robes like the blood trail they follow, as well as black wrist straps to protect from the sting of their weapons. A hunter wields an energy bow with a plasma bowstring and arrows of the same material. The energy bow can fire plasma arrows unrelentingly at any target, and its bowstring can blind or burn should you need to use it as a bludgeon. It is a specialty weapon. Therefore, it is vital that our clan be supplied with a standard 9 credits from every 10 you earn, so we may continue to outfit you with the equipment you require. Shadow Killers are assassins. They wear black wraps of the night and carry silent weapons such as the dagger and the poison dart. It is an art to become one with the dark. Shadow Killers can also be aided by spirit ichor. Shamans such as I can conjure a mist that allows our Shadow Killers to operate midway between the physical realm and the spirit realm. Our warriors wear the cuffs and soldier armor of those who have withstood the crucible. Their weapons, such as pikes, are infused with a powerful magic and can cut through any substance. Through the magics of the Fang God, a warrior can be transformed into an avatar of primal anger. This requires the skill of an expert shaman and a full coven of crafters. By conjuring green spirit ichor and challenging the rawest hatred, the energies can be siphoned into hulking muscle and bone. A transformed warrior will be a massive, standing a head taller, boasting a broad chest and spine-crushing arms. A proud Zabarak of the Night Brothers will grow a crown of horns to rival that of any Vern buck in autumn. Although the crucible tests a candidate's skill, it's not the end of their training. It is a second beginning. Candidates who reach this point are skilled in combat, but they lack the subtle touch needed to channel the abilities of the spirits. Emotion is a powerful catalyst that connects you to your bestial essence and by extension to the your spirits that rule our natural impulses. There's utter concentration. Then distract them with mocking taunts and the agony of a barbed leash. There is no shorter path to the revelation that it is not peace but passion that leads to achievement. Train your students well. It has been foretold by Allah that a perfect being will one day arise. One brought into existence by the spirits and who will embody the balance between the winged goddess and the fanged god. Perhaps it will be you who will train this champion. Perhaps it is you. Competing Darkside Traditions. We reject the term Darkside, but is commonly applied because of the cultural pull of the Jedi and the Sith. Those who use the powers of the supernatural, or as others call it, the Force, in order to kill at their employer's behest, are considered Darksiders. It is clear that if we are to be thus classified, we should market ourselves as such. You'll find yourself among many who do not understand our traditions. They may call you Sith or any number of other prominent traditions. Use this chance to set the Nightsisters apart in the minds of those who hold power. Only by promoting our unique skills will we be able to continue to command a premium price. The prophets of the dark side are similar to the Sith in many ways. Their breakaway religion splintered from the teachings of the Sith Lord Darth Millennial. but the prophets are not warriors. They claim to possess unparalleled skill in fortune-telling, and some have approached our clients promising to reveal the outcomes of galactic events yet to come. I doubt the spirits whisper to them with any clarity, and only a witch in the grasp of insanity would be charmed by their religion. I suspect their pronouncements are empty shells and made from self-fulfilling statements. Plant the seed of doubt if the opportunity arises. New claimants to the Darkside tradition have arisen from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The Kenzar Exiles are a group of reptilians from the Vatalaran Rift who claim allegiance to the Lord Ravenger. And the Neil of Musilupi is a death cult that dwells amid the moon trees of the Ginga Gap. Whether these groups are true representatives or merely opportunists is unclear. However, their claims to power are quite specific. The Kenzar Exiles exert that they have the power to enslave many minds at once. The Nell alleges to have the ability to summon apocalyptic deities from the realm beyond the shadows. If either group shall fail to fulfill these declarations, we will have our evidence to expose its members as frauds. The most enigmatic of the new competitors are the Sorcerers of Rand. They claim a kinship with the dark, which they view as embodiment of decay and death. A true sorcerer is said to be able to psychic blast to eradicate an object or a living being. They are not believed to operate outside the Nelig retreat, but make an effort to learn more about their ways if you can. Other groups have been in this game of Darkside mercenaries for centuries, far longer than the Nightsisters. These are our prime competitors. Do what you must to dissolve their hold among the powerful of the Corn Rim. The influence of the Tapani sector royal houses is strong. Among House Messis nobles, there are those who claim affinity with the Sith, and whose ancestors triggered the cleansing of the 9 houses, which not only destabilizes an entire quadrant of the galaxy, but swallowed 3 other noble houses. The agents of the House of Meseti belong to the Mercer Order. They specialize in assassination. I know our skills are superior, for I sent 3 shadow killers to the Pella system to test their skill. 2 of ours returned, but none of the Muskoka opponents survived. The Blackguard operates from the molten world of Mustafar. They are largely recluse and have sought Darkside lore since they emerged from the ruins of Sith philosophy after the Battle of Rusan nearly 1,000 years ago. The Blackguard clings to the principle that acquiring knowledge is superior to exerting physical power. It makes them a careful and cautious rival. For now, they are too isolated to factor into our plans. The Shapers of the Crow Ore are few in number, but they profess to be shamans of a similar tradition to our own. I do not doubt they have gained a small glimpse into the spirit realm, but they do not have native to Dathomir. They cannot have heard the call of the spirits as clearly as we have. The Shapers of Crow are dark magic to manipulate the elements of air, earth, water, and fire. They have recently made their services available to buyers in the Marzoon sector. Only the clan mothers may broker the services of the Nightsisters, but not all Nightsisters are equal expertise. We will not repeat the mistakes of the shaman Yusu Gurek, who too eagerly sold the services of her clan to separatist buyers and then could not protect her sisters from the Jedi counterattack. By offering our services, you agree to perform any mission on your client's behalf, provided it falls underneath the terms brokered by the clan mother. The Nightsisters will not tolerate dishonor no matter who provides the funding. Those who treat us if we were primitives to be swindled will be punished, and others will have a warning and further evidence of our lethal aptitude. Notes of Darth Plagueis. The science of creating life. What is the Force? The Jedi say it is created by life, but I say the Force creates life. It is a simple deduction, an obvious conclusion, when supported by structural experimentation. Yet consider this. The galaxy's leading scientific minds are largely ignorant of the Force, and the galaxy's most skilled Force users reject science. The latter are caught up in romantic mysticism, convinced they have been called by a higher power. The former have no excuse. Thus, I will be the first to pursue this line of inquiry. A scientific understanding of the Force is not the same as the memorization of incantations. Science seeks to understand the principle behind a reaction, not merely how to replicate it, particularly when the formulas for the reaction are bloated with centuries of empty ornamentation. To study alchemy, one must strip away its rhyming phrases and its perverse obsession with blood sacrifice. To study a shadow talisman, one must look beyond the works of invocation. When a talisman unleashes its power, what is its true trigger? The words? The speaker's tone? His mental state? If a talisman's power resides inside the gem, what will happen if a fragment is shaved off, then another? Does the energy dissipate when sufficient mass is lost? Is the ratio consistent for similar gems and similar talisman? The Sith of old never asked these questions, for tradition and obedience extinguished their spoke for curiosity. And these questions are much more than idle speculation. My science will remove everything superfluous. In this way, the true nature of the fundamental elements of the Jedi and the Sith will so casually be revealed. So, it must be that I am the first. I will change it all. The Sith wallowed in the ritual even during our centuries under the rule of two, playing dress-up in frightening costumes and posturing for our followers. I will burn away the colorful wrappings and study the skeletal structure that reveals the architect of reality. My ultimate goal is the secret of life, that life that gives us consciousness, for without consciousness, each of us is nothing. Through science, I will create new life and sustain my own. There is no reason why Darth Plagueis could not live forever. Influencing the Midi-chlorians. The Force is found throughout the universe, not only in living things. Everything in existence that draws upon various aspects of the energy we call the Force may be classified into three categories. The Aprian includes and unites all matter, giving it shape and cohesion. Aspects of the Oparian include gravity and electromagnetism, through the term encompasses everything in both space and time. Many of the abilities understood as belongings to the unifying force are tied to the Aprian. The Agni gives life, but not thought, to animals, plants, and other living things. Midi-chlorians are responsible for inducing and sustaining anima in almost all species. Many of the living force abilities are tied to the anima. The Pneuma is the expression of conscious thought. Thinking, self-aware minds contribute to the collective pneuma, which is accessed by many natural telepathic species, as well as by the various mind tricks of the Jedi and Sith. These fundamental forces would exist even without midi-chlorians. However, midi-chlorians are the beneficiaries of the unusually strong connection to all forms of physical and psychic energy. Because the midi-chlorians inhabit living cells, the host organism is able to draw upon this connection. Midi-chlorians are symbiotes. They die when their host dies, and no host can live if completely purged of midi-chlorians. All living things, regardless of their planet of origin, appear to possess midi-chlorians, or complementary biological structures. The reason for this information are unknown, but the results of my experiments are ambiguous, have shifted my present focus significantly. Of considerable interest is the fact that while most cellophil organisms generate chemical energy, midi-chlorians generate force energy. They also appear to possess a single unified consciousness linked via the pneuma and can be influenced by the host's mental state. In particular, negative emotions, such as the loss of hope, can induce celonecrosis. Typical blood concentration is around 2,500 midi-chlorians per cell. Cutting this concentration in half will usually induce death. I conclude that force energy is required for life and that midi-chlorians are its biological vector. Jedi and Sith have high midi-chlorian counts at the moment of the birth. Breeding between two force-sensitive parents is an option, as the pairing generally results in force-sensitive offspring. On the other hand, genetic defects have been a concern since the inbreeding among the royals of the Vu during the mad chase for extraordinary powers. A simple blood transfusion is the obvious answer, but I have found that the subject's native midi-chlorians will reject the influx of foreign cells. Perpetual life. The solution, therefore, is not to introduce midi-chlorians, but to impose one's will on the midi-chlorians already present in the subject. This can be done through the energy of the pneuma. Just as a warrior in peak condition can lift a heavy weight, so can someone with a sharpened mental focus and an affinity for the Force achieve a measurable effect on living cells. I begin with experiments on scurriers and other small creatures. I use my will, amplified through my body's own midi-chlorians, to override the lesser concentrated midi-chlorian voices in the test subjects. This proved more challenging than I predicted. Because midi-chlorians are linked by a universal mind, the ones in my own cells seem to resist this imposition upon their fellows. But eventually I succeeded, first with small creatures, then with slaves purchased from the huts. I forced the midi-chlorians to override their natural life cycles. What I discovered is that those midi-chlorians would not die. Instead, they drew upon sustaining force energy, which acted on a microscopic level to halt tissue decay in their host, putting an end to aging and disease. Concentrating the force. My experiments proved midi-chlorians could be controlled. If this is true, then could they not also be induced to create life at the monocellular level? Midi-chlorians in the cells of a mother could in theory be persuaded to craft a zygote. For consistency in my test subjects, I obtained hundreds of identical humanoids, each with a consistent midi-chlorian level. After much experimentation, I succeeded in prodding the midi-chlorians to replicate themselves through asexual fission. Though, in most cases, this process increased the numbers uncontrollably and killed the host. But I believe that by using this method, I can trick midi-chlorians into creating a zygote. Then it would simply be a matter of growing the subject under normal biological conditions. Such a subject could, of course, take years to hit the development milestones of a typical humanoid, but he can have a midi-chlorian count as high as 20,000 per cell. That is more than any Jedi or Sith in recorded history. Although entirely theoretical, such as achieving an achievement like this is intriguing. If new life could be created where none existed before, the living could sustain their bodies indefinitely. Science has led to these conclusions, yet these secrets must be guarded with utmost care. For now, it remains purely theoretical. The philosophy of life. The secrets of immortality are not meant for common beings. If all knew these truths, it would destabilize the structure of civilization. I do not wish to live in a galaxy where any fool can perpetuate his ignorance for eternity. Life is not mystical. Like Tabana gas or Nova crystals, life is a resource to be exploited. It is unique in that those who possess it find it priceless, yet, in the exaggerate, it is so common that it is functionally worthless. Billions of beings come into existence every day, and billions more die. We would preserve only those who advance our goals, or whose work is complementary to our own. Under my grand plan, this list will include apprentices, researchers, and credit-worshipping corporate executives. But all other beings mustn't be allowed to die. I would not turn the controls of an airspeeder over to a Gandark. And I will not leave the dull masses in charge of the issue that matter. They are ultimately content with their brief lives. They would not know how to do with the gift of never-ending time. Immortality opens up a new tactic for the grand plan. No longer do I need to prepare for the succession of the Sith Order after my death. Schemes in politics and finance set in motion today can safely take decades or even centuries to come to fruition. Such as subtle plays are ideal for the Grand Master whose patience is infinite. New explorations in the Force. My work with Midi-chlorians is rooted in what is traditionally considered the living force, or those energies attached to the anima and the pneuma. The unifying force, or the aprion, is not specifically necessary for the creation and manipulation of life, but Midi-chlorians channel it nonetheless. As I look at the Force in a new light, I have found new applications for this omnipresent states. The aprion governs the cohesion of matter, from the atoms of a pebble to all planets and gravity in the universe. This includes the dimension of time. Through the aprion, space-time can be manipulated on a grand scale. That is, if a user channels sufficient energy through his agitated midi-chlorians while maintaining focus and accuracy. I believe an individual could step instantly from one place to another by folding space, regardless of the intervening distances. Similarly, one could be able to fold time, not to temporarily displace a physical object, but to shift one's consciousness backward and forward along time flows. Such a thing would permit the study of all knowledge through history, even the secrets recorded in the long-lost library of Silversises. The anima governs life, and it is through this state that force healing is possible. But to sever the force, that is something rare. To sever the force is to trigger a mass die-off of victims, midi-chlorians, not enough to kill, but enough to take a Jedi's power. It could be that the Jedi of old knew this feat, but if so, they did not understand its underpinnings. Severing the Force is an inverse of what I have done when inducing midi-chlorians to create life. It is far easier to achieve. The pneuma governs consciousness. Through this, I am convinced that the energy patterns we know as self-awareness can be preserved and imprinted a second time into a neural pathway and a different brain. This process would be simplest with a cloned baby that is identical to the subject's own, though in theory any advanced biological form would prove sufficient. Body swapping of this nature is riskier than simply sustaining one's own life through midi-chlorian manipulation. In dire emergency, however, it could serve as an escape against oblivion. Transcending death. The act of transferring consciousness between bodies touches on a subject that still troubles me. The patterns that define each mind can be stored in the pneuma field, but these patterns degrade almost instantly if they're not anchored to a new biological form. The speed of this degradation is so rapid that it seems to render the argument for life after death moot. But yet I have always been one to follow the evidence. All beings are afraid of oblivion. Every culture has written fables to assure themselves that death is not the end. Even the Jedi do this. Through midi-chlorians, they believe that they have a connection to the universe's fundamental energies that others do not. Therefore, I am reluctant to dismiss their histories too rapidly. During the Great Sith War, Jedi combatants were said to have vanished at the moment of their deaths, with the cells of their bodies sublimating into the energy. It must be noted that although I have witnessed the death of a Jedi, I have never witnessed this phenomenon. Some of these Jedi were said to have returned as pure consciousness, communicating specific and verifiable information to the living. Ghost stories are so common that they are laughable, but the pneuma leads me to believe that such a thing is possible. The netherworld and chaos. How mental patterns persist beyond our physical minds remains an enigma. Thought degrades into randomness in less than a minute. To hold awareness longer than that, and to appear to others in the physical world while retaining both visual and auditory aspects is a remarkable feat. If true, I have read that the lore keepers of the Wills have perfected this, but the Wills remained a frustrating puzzle for those who wished to learn more about them. One thing is clear though, although such a phenomenon technically meets the definition of life after death, it is not supernatural. The unimaginative always ascribe their own motivations to independent phenomenon, including those who believe the Force has a consciousness and a will. In fact, though Midi-chlorians share a collective mind, the Force itself could not possibly know or care about the welfare of intelligent life. My God, therefore, it is a separate genuine insight from hyperbole. I do not know how the Jedi of the past achieved the supposed miracle of retaining their awareness after death, but I know it was not through supplication and prayer. However, the fact that individual identities are absorbed into the pneuma at the moment of their deaths explains several associated legends. The Jedi, for example, speak of the netherworld beyond death, a realm that is vague on detail but said to be a place of utmost peace. Similarly, chaos is where dead Sith Lords are believed to dwell in torment. At least according to legend, those who are too weak to punish their enemies during their lifetime will be forced to hold on to their grudges and to live on in chaos, plotting but never being able to exact their revenge. The peace of the netherworld? It is easily understood as the reaction of a mind that finds itself dissipating into the hum of the background energy and accepts its fate without pain or fear. Minds that are less inclined to accept their loss of identity will fight to keep their grasp in order. Those stronger minds will recoil as their constituent threads are pulled apart, and they will perceive their imminent dissolution as chaos. Sith Spirits. The most accessible lore concerning life after death is found in the holocrons of the Sith. Indeed, the Sith holocrons are said to contain the spirits of their builders, and these spirits interact with users as holographic gatekeepers. But all this is just sleight of hand, a programmable artificial intelligence that wears the face of a long ago dead lord. More interesting are the tales of Sith ghosts said to haunt everything from the tombs of Korriban to the relics inside Coruscant's great Galactic Museum. Is it possible that these masters of the dark side succeeded in preserving their awareness? If so, can they still be queried for their secrets? Unfortunately, I have been to Korriban, and I am not convinced that these tales hold truth. The tomb of Hegaram remains silent to my queries, and the throne where Sukr's son once sat contained no mocking, imperious spectre. I was ready to conclude that the tales are merely diversions for the credulous, but as I boarded my ship in the Valley of the Dark Lords, I beheld a vision of the Sith Lord Marka Ragnos. The apparition challenged my claim to the Sith title and railed against my plan to dismantle the traditions of Korriban. But the vision of Ragnos would not answer my questions, nor my diligent inquiries. He snarled and disappeared for a whirl of smoke. It is possible that the entire episode simply played out in my mind. There is one spirit encounter that would truly intrigue me, however. I would enjoy questioning my master, Darth Tenebris, to see if he anticipated my growing power and whether he knew I might destroy him on Balmedic. I wonder what Tenebris would think of his apprentice has achieved since that day. The Prophecy of the Chosen One. The beliefs of the Jedi are expressed in ritual and storytelling. Plain language somehow eludes those who have grown up tightly wrapped in tradition. The Jedi await the coming of a savior, a prophesied chosen one who will destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. The Jedi tells of the Mortis, a place of impossible geographic inside the angles of gargantuan monolith. The three all-powerful beings of Mortis can assume strange shapes and exemplify the dark side, the light side, and the principle of balance. Compelling? It is debatable, but at the very least it is an adequate way to illustrate an allegorical point. Day consists with night, for example, and construction is always followed by ruin. Yet many of the Jedi treat the legends of Mortis as literal truth. They believe that the Chosen One will prevent these gods and demons from tearing the universe asunder, that their champion will be a vessel of pure Force energy. So we come back to Midi-chlorians. These organisms allow beings to live and provide a connection to the Force. If bred in sufficient quantities, Midi-chlorians can even conceive a new life form, and bestow upon it power greater than any Jedi has ever dreamed, generating a virgins in the Force. If I induce a Midi-chlorians to create such a being, my handiwork would fit all the descriptions of their Chosen One, but he would be an agent of my will. How fitting that the misguided reliance on superstition could lead to a Sith creation that is hailed by the Jedi as a savior. The culmination of the Sith'ari. The Sith have their religion too. Since the time of Korriban's savage primitives, our order has become encumbered by rituals in the way that a starship accumulates Minox. This ends with me. I will replace those beliefs with truth, rationality, and the rule of the gifted. Yet, the prophecy of the Sith'ari still holds some interest. Prophecies are generally wishful thinking, but because Midi-chlorians have the ability to tap the Eprions, any tug on the space-time can be interpreted as foresight. The fact that the Sith created their own savior myth is predictable, but the prophecy states that a being will arise who is free from restrictions and who will destroy the Sith only to make them stronger than before. These statements seem uniquely specific to the actions I am taking now. I am free from the blind obedience to symbols and mysticism. I will end the traditions that have bound the Sith throughout their history. I have unlocked the secrets of life, and by doing so I will enable long-term plans to ensure Sith dominance for centuries. I am not a creative for superstition, but if the robes of the Sith'ari fit, I see no reason to claim them. Absolute Power by Darth Sidious. The Weakness of Inferiors. The Empire has only begun to be built, but its foundation is the anger of the dark side. Although the mindless subjects know nothing of the shadowy majesty, the true power of the Empire originates with the Emperor. The promises laid out by the Rule of Two have been fulfilled. The Sith have been brought to glory, and the Jedi to destruction. As Darth Bane and Mother Talzin knew, the weakness of the inferiors is self-evident. The weak do not understand the Force. They are ignorant and lack power, but they may still be exploited for gain. No ruler can manage an entirety of a complex as the populated galaxy without knowing how to manipulate others. Fear is the spark that drove my march to power. Even now it fuels the engine of my empire. The weak must be trained to fear the consequences of betrayal. They must dread that their neighbor's loyalty is greater than their own. The anxious will whip themselves into hysterical nationalism without further prompting, for fear is self-perpetuating. The weak live in terror that they will be judged for their failings and be put on display, that they will be punished. It is a belief that should not be discouraged. The False War. Fear was a necessary component in destroying the Jedi and burning away the petrifying vestiges of the Republic. But first I had to create that fear. Fear of revolution, fear of destruction, and of death. I had to create a war on a massive scale. My apprentice Count Dooku rallied star systems to his banner, inflaming passions among Rim citizens. This naturally deepened the fears of the core residents, who clamored for protection like brush kits mewling for their mothers. The clone army I had prepared was met with applause and relief, and so began the Clone Wars. It did not matter at all that I dictated orders through the Separatists through my apprentice, nor that every Republic victory was followed with a carefully planned defeat. The benefits of this false war were countless. From the clone army came a battle fleet and an arsenal of new mechanisms, weapons of war. Overnight, the Republic had a class of military elites who swore their loyalty to the Supreme Chancellor. The senators feared that being painted as disloyal would make them unelectable, so they supported measures to dismantle all checks on centralized power. On the opposite side, the Trade Federation and the Commerce Guild and other corporate glamourites joined together to protect their profits. They unknowingly pledged their allegiance to the Sith. The Jedi did not want the war, but they had little choice. They had to join the fight, lest they face public scorn. There on the front lines, my war struck down my enemies and shredded their morals, until they were on the brink of the dark side. The Jedi were never the true heroes. I saw to that by manipulating the HoloNet. The people were led to fear the Jedi's ignorance and strange power. By crafting the news, the clone troopers and their noble chancellor became the fearless heroes of the Republic. When the time came for the Jedi to be eliminated, the public did not mourn them. When the Senate learned that the Jedi had attempted a coup and needed to be exterminated, they responded with absolute certainty. And when the people saw smoke rising from the Jedi Temple, they felt relief. The useful bureaucrats. My master, Darth Plagueis, developed an obsession with midi-chlorians, neglecting his greatest talent, manipulating the strings that kept the galaxy from degenerating into anarchy. As a key figure in the intergalactic banking clan, he was well acquainted with the business leaders and politicians who shaped the very galaxy. Yet, for all their power, not one of them was recognizable to general citizens. Control of this invisible steering committee is vital to the rule of the Empire, for their fortunes are tied to the regime's success. The corporate entities, the Senate, the HoloNet, and the military are all under my control. The loss of any one would undermine my central authority. There are, of course, unspoken members of this vital committee. Nothing could be accomplished without the tacit support of petty crime lords. Chief among those are the Hutt cartels, the Bothan spy networks, the Black Sun Underworld Syndicate, and the Bounty Hunters Guild. These groups are not in any measurable way different from the bankers and traders. They will remain content as long as profits are strong. But fear must be stoked from time to time. They must be reminded what doing business with rebels and seditious leads to punishment and financial ruin. The military families of the core hold influence over their sectors and have long hungered for a strong hand at the top. Although the Clone Wars have ended, I have heard no whisperings from anyone wishing to dismantle our armies. I will fortify the Galactic Empire in my authority with the greatest strength the galaxy has ever seen. TIE fighters will scream through the skies while sand troopers, stormtroopers, and armored walkers will round up dissenters on any planet unwilling to submit to my rule. Imperial Star Destroyers will orbit above population centers, waiting for orders to open fire if their leaders fail to see the benefits of becoming an Imperial possession. Finally, my Death Star will be the ultimate battle station and the personification of fear. Its weapon will shatter planets and extinguish all will to fight across the galaxy. When complete, the Death Star will spell the end to the insignificant threat of the rebellions and organized protests. Hiding in plain sight. The galaxy is free of Jedi, and the citizens rejoice. Therefore, it would be foolish to replace the regime with an identical system led by the Sith, at least publicly. The weak do not understand the Force. They venerate those who appear to be ordinary people like themselves. They cheered at the news that a resolute old man had survived a Jedi assassination attempt. In Palpatine, an ordinary senator from Naboo, they see a model of human achievement. My apprentice and other agents of my will are fearsome embodiments of that dark side. Mere rumors of their presence are enough to frighten citizens into obedience. But those same citizens must not know that the Sith Lord has constructed the Galactic Empire until it is too late. But that hidden truth is in no way diminishes my triumph. The Sith have long operated from the shadows, and the 1,000-year wait of Darth Bane is over. The Sith have exacted their revenge. The galaxy praises the Empire, and the feeble-minded are not worthy of understanding its true origins. Like Darth Bane and my master before me, I have honed the tool of deception. Darth Bane kept a low profile, but it was Darth Plagueis who, as the public face of the intergalactic banking clan, shaped the economies of the entire regions. In truth, everyone wears a mask. When speaking to others, a false persona can charm, seduce, or frighten. A Sith knows that all interactions are masked. It is no great difficulty to don multiple masks when the situation demands it. All beings want to make sense of their reality, but none of them wish to think too deeply. They gravitate towards words that confirm their existing suspicions. In my decades as ambassador, senator, and supreme chancellor, I did not once encounter an exception to this rule. It was true whether I was reminding the Senate of the need for war powers or sitting across from Master Yoda and convincing him to send more Jedi Knights into harm's way. None suspected the duplicity of my identity. In fact, so convinced the Jedi of their superior insight that they were easiest to deceive. The Book of Anger. Through the principles of anger, I will structure and maintain my empire. The writing of Darth Malgus confirms that anger, combined with will, is the key to power. When anger intensifies to rage, it is unstoppable. Malgus submitted utterly to the dark side, and doing so made him exemplary warrior. His battlefield feats have never been duplicated. It must be understood that anger can be funneled through the body and released near the heart by the vital gate. The destruction that can be unleashed by this method is immense. Thousands of enemies can be annihilated in a single act of malice. In time, the channeled anger of the dark side will prove just as destructive as the Death Star. There will be no longer a need for costly constructions. Already I perfected the Force Maelstrom, which creates an invulnerable energy field to block incoming attacks while bombarding enemies with debris and electrifying them with bolts of lightning. This technique can be increased into Force Storm. The churning energy mass of a Force Storm can consume everything it touches, for at its eye is pure hate. Just as a black hole devours a star, this storm can swallow armies and fold space. It may take decades to master this art, but once I have perfected it, I will be invincible. Anger has more uses than personal strength. A strong ruler knows that fear can keep commoners in line, but anger can weaken enemies. Indeed, my subjects fear me, but that fear will lead to anger, and anger will make my empire strong. However, anger directed toward authority is dangerous. It must be channeled towards other weaker subjects. By encouraging fear of the exotic and the unusual, a regime can be strengthened. The Empire has uniformity in its symbols and its ideology, which makes it easier to shame those who do not belong and to make them the objects of the galaxy's rage. The Republic's alien species are the simplest targets. Most humans at the core already despise looking into those multiple eyes or listening to their clickings, buzzing languages. They hate their bewildering customs and their sharp stench. Coruscant is seething boil in species, but humans far outnumber any other species. It is an ideal place to sow seeds of suspicion, to instill the idea that those who don't conform are the enemies, and the enemies must be destroyed. By making the powerless a target, the people will not threaten the one in power. On the contrary, the ruler will be venerated as a hero for exposing the weak. As Darth Bane instituted the rule of 2, so I will begin the rule of 1. The Sith will now be sustained by one to hold the power, and others talented in the Force to execute my will as Darkside agents. Although the Jedi Order has been obliterated, many Force sensitives have survived. Those who still hold to the belief that there is venture in peace or in closing oneself off to sensation will be made to conform. They must find value in the ways of the dark. Unleashing their anger is fundamental for drawing them into my fold, as well for them to gain an understanding of the dark side. For it is the anger that Force users are strongest. Once tapped, this emotion can turn idealists into slaves. Even those with passion, those who vow to resist with their dying breath, can be broken in 3 simple steps. First, they must be tempted. The strong-willed always has something they desire, or something they possess that they fear to lose. They will see their drive to protect this item as noble. By encouraging this delusion, a puppet is created. Second, the puppets must be tested. By creating an imminent danger or placing the subjects in peril, they will be forced to make a decision. Crazed by fear and the mere thought of losing what they hold dear, they will do anything that is asked of them, if only to preserve their most cherished desires. Third, they must be forced to submit. A moment will arise, they will take a step too far. In panic or fear, they will hurt others or commit a crime in such a way the outside world will never forgive. After that moment, there is no return from the dark side. Some who have ensnared will choose to end their lives. Most, however, will accept the role of new warriors of the dark side. One life has ended and a better one has begun. As the new rule of one is enacted, I will be free to enlist a throne of dark side followers. These talented mimics will be trained to replicate a smattering of my abilities, yet will never take a faction of my authority. The Inquisitarius is an arm of my imperial intelligence tasked with extricating information through torture. The most effective will serve as Grand Inquisitors, and the best of those will be selected as a Emperor's Hand. These elite agents will be handpicked for loyalty and stealth. They shall be unseen enforcers across the breadth of my vast dominion. The red-robed royal guard will protect me from those who think themselves worthy of an audience with the Emperor. Within their ranks, a few who are in touch with the Force will comprise a rectified warrior unit called the Shadow Guard. Captured Padawans and survivors from the Jedi Service Corps are less gifted in the Force, but they will serve me nonetheless as Darkside Addicts. Until I have use for them, they shall remain on the Abyss, where their connections to the Force will intensify the planet's growing nexus of Darkside potency. The manipulation of life. The future of my empire is found in the mysteries of life, how to hold on to it so that my reign will never end, and how to twist it to create colossi that will do my bidding. Not even nature can stand in my way. I have mastered the dark side arts of deception, fear, and anger, but signs of darkness represented by the writings of Sorzon Sin and Darth Plagueis is open for exploration. Amusingly, the philosophies of the two authors could not be more opposed. Both Sith Lords understood that living things are not special. They are a resource to be harvested and shaped by the powerful. Through the dark side, I can make many new shapes. The alchemy developed by Sin is being perfected on the Abyss, where my dark side adepts enjoy their potent skills to warp life on a broad scale. My monstrous chrysalides, with their magnificent metal-piercing fangs, guard the ramparts of my citadel. My mute Imperial Sentinels stand by my throne, their annihilated minds and enslaved wills clear evidence that the dark side can manipulate clones for any imaginative purpose. Although alchemy can create perfect beings, I have designed weakness into all these creations. The flaws are minute and known only to me. I would not do for any creature to be stronger than its creator. These experiments will lead to greater things, opportunities for me to create new beings of my own design. What will separate me from the gods of Naboo myth? The philosophy of creating monsters is applicable to the more fundamental elements of life. Darth Plagueis focused too much narrowly on the Midi-chlorians, but he was right about a great many things. The dark side consumes the physical body, just as mine became misshapen after the attempted Jedi assassination, but the mind can be preserved. Through the art of dark transfer, I will soon move myself into a younger body, cloned from my own cells. I will achieve immortality. Even if I am killed, I will return from the chaos of non-being to restored physical life. This, even my master could not achieve. I knew it was so when I halted his breathing and watched the light vanish from his eyes. He sought the secret of life, to live forever, but I took his life. I remain the ultimate Sith. Throughout the eras, the Sith foretold of a being who would destroy their order and rebuild it stronger than before. I do not care about ancient prophecies. The approval of the dead is meaningless. Yet it is clear that the Sith'ari could be no other than me. The Imperial Age has begun. I have centuries to expound my philosophies. Yet all knowledge flows from the Darkside writings collected here. Let these pages mark the inception of the first Book of Sith. The end.